Hi everybody, welcome back. These are your hosts, Arne and Carlos, and we're here with another tutorial this week. Today I thought it could be interesting to talk about different kinds of yarns and how to choose the right yarn for the right project. So hopefully we will be able to share our knowledge and give you some tips and advice so that you can make the right choices when you go to your yarn store. So, we're back here today, and today we are going to be talking a little bit about yarn and a little bit about yarn choices. There is so much yarn out on the market, and there's so many different qualities, and there's so many different price points, and sometimes it can be really difficult to know exactly what to buy, what to choose. And since Arne and I have been working for many years, I mean originally as designers and as producers, we had our own line of knitwear 10 years ago, and we were manufacturing in South America and working a lot with different yarn qualities. We thought we'd share a little bit about our experiences and our opinions, and maybe this way you will be able to make better choices. So yeah. So what's your favorite?
Let's start.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Your favorite kind of yarn, Arne? What's
I like
that?
pure wool.
You like pure wool, yeah.
Pure wool.
And so why do you like pure wool?
Because it's when you do like jacquard knitting like this.
Like Fair Isle, yes.
Fair Isle, it's better. I think it's easier to do color work in pure wool. If you do color work in alpaca, it's harder because you can see the yarn
through it. Yeah.
The other color, you can see it shine through.
Yeah. And that's something we're going to explain to you, the reason why wool is really good for Fair Isle knitting. So the reason is that wool is actually a very light fiber. It doesn't weigh much, so you can get a lot of wool in very little weight, to put it in that way. And so when you're knitting Fair Isle or you're doing Fair Isle projects, the lightness of the wool will create this very dense kind of pattern with no air in it. So you can see that this is very nicely knitted, and there's really, you can't really see through it. Now, if you would have chosen a fiber like alpaca is very heavy. It looks more like hair when you see the alpaca fiber while it's being manufactured. And because it's a very flat fiber, very heavy flat fiber, when you knit Fair Isle, it tends to kind of stretch, and you tend to end up with something that looks like that, where you kind of see everything through, which is not very nice for Fair Isle.
Like when we worked in the fashion industry, we tried to make this kind of knitwear in alpaca, but it really didn't work at all, and especially in machine knitting, because you're carrying the other yarn all the time, and then you could see that color shining through your
exactly.
knitwear.
And that's because it's alpaca, and it's a different kind of yarn. It comes from a different kind of animal, and really the yarn looks like hair when it's after it's been spun and washed. It looks like.
Yeah, and we also met people who told us they've been knitting like for months on a piece in pure alpaca, and then when they wear it for a few times, it's sagging, it's falling down, it's getting bigger and bigger. So we never knitted anything in pure alpaca.
No.
We like the blend of alpaca and merino, like the one we're wearing. This is a blend.
Yeah, this is a blend and this is a blend. Yeah, so basically we're not very big fans on 100% alpaca. 100% alpaca, 100% baby alpaca will be a very expensive yarn, and it will be a very heavy yarn, and things will start sagging after a while. You cannot use it for Fair Isle because it will stretch and you will see through it. So never go for a 100% alpaca yarn if you're going to do a Fair Isle piece.
You will spend a lot of time knitting, and then you will be so disappointed when it all falls down.
Exactly. So a better option is a blend. So look for a blend which has alpaca in it, but which also has the wool, because the lightness of the wool and the softness of the alpaca will create a really wonderful yarn to work with. This one here is from Rowan. This is a merino. No, this is an alpaca merino blend. It's called the Alpaca Soft DK. It's 30% alpaca, 70% wool.
This is good.
Super soft wool. And you see, you only need about 30% alpaca to create that softness that the alpaca yarn gives. And then the 70% wool gives it the lightness. Now, if you go down even, to 20% alpaca, 10% alpaca, you will still get a really soft, luxurious yarn. So it doesn't necessarily mean that buying 100% alpaca because it's so expensive is the best. The blends are actually way better. Yeah. And that's the same thing with cashmere. Never try knitting a pair of socks in a super expensive, super luxurious cashmere wool, 100% cashmere, because what's going to happen? You're going to get the heel with a big hole within days of using it. Cashmere is not a very sturdy fiber. It's actually very delicate, and it pills as well very easily. I'm not a big fan of 100% cashmere either, and cashmere is actually even more expensive than alpaca. So what you want to look for is a yarn blend that has a little bit of cashmere, and you don't even need to go to 30% cashmere. 10% cashmere and 90% wool will give you a fantastically luxurious yarn.
But then again, a lot of the merino wool today is so soft and it's so nice.
Yeah.
So it's hard to feel the difference between the mix of alpaca and merino and the pure merino.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of great merino yarns on the market now, 100% merinos, that are really good. Yeah. Very high quality, very durable. They have the lightness and they have the softness. Now, this particular merino is from Schachenmeier, and this one is also spinned into a certain, or the yarn is done in a certain way. As you can see, it's very tightly wrapped around like this, and it is because of pilling. The more the yarn is kind of wrapped up like that, the less it will pill. And yes, these luxurious yarns, merinos, alpacas, cashmeres, they pill. This is something that comes because of the softness. There is really no way around it. But the way that they're spun does help a lot with pilling. So
well, not for me. Everything peels on me.
Yeah, well, you are.
Because I'm always
you're always moving around.
So.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to go for yarns that don't pill, you need to choose coarser yarns, which we will talk about later. But these yarns will pill. And this one, of course, will pill a little bit less because it's so tightly wrapped like it is. And I'm going to show you an experiment as well, because the way you knit, a lot of Americans and British, they throw. And then when you throw, you're actually moving the yarn around. Or if you do it the German way, where you...
Yeah, when you control your tension by doing something like this, or the other way, on your finger, like this.
Yeah.
And then you unwrap it,
yeah,
because you're doing this. If you leave the yarn on your finger, it doesn't unwrap it.
And it's the same when you throw. When you're throwing the yarn, make sure that you don't open it like that.
But the more you twist the yarn, untwist the yarn,
the more the pilling.
And it's easy to break.
Yeah, I'll show you something that we learned, which is very simple. Now, this is the twist of the yarn, or the way it's twisted. So if I keep twisting it in the same direction like this, keep twisting, and if I try to, it's pretty hard, isn't it? And the more you twist, the harder it becomes. But if I start unwrapping it the other way around, like this, it snaps, just like that. So remember that you are making the yarn weaker if you are unwrapping it like that while you're knitting. So always make sure that you're knitting with a yarn and that it's well twisted the way it's supposed to be. And don't unravel it as you knit. That will avoid a lot of problems with pilling, and also the fact that the yarn will be stronger for you to work with.
And we also know that a lot of people, they prefer to knit with acrylics because it's cheaper. But if you make a sweater knitted from acrylic, it's actually a sweater with better quality.
Worse quality.
Worse quality. So if you're going to make a sweater, use something that is... It doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be a good quality, because then it can stay in your family forever.
Yeah. And I think I would be more partial to finding a blend that can have some acrylic, but that also has a little bit of wool in it, so you get a little bit of the natural fiber. I would go for something like that more than a 100% acrylic. And then of course, there is a big difference between acrylic and acrylic. There's some very bad acrylics, and then there's a lot of other acrylics which are better. So again, quality-wise, the spectrum is very, very, very big. Usually we say that you should get the yarn, the best possible yarn that you can afford. That's a good way to go. So whatever, if you have a budget for your yarn, get the best yarn you can get, the best quality yarn you can get for that budget. That's a great way to go.
Especially for clothing.
Especially for clothing,
If you knit Christmas balls or toys, you can use anything.
Yeah, if you knit a Christmas ball, you can just, use a cheap yarn because you're just putting it up on the tree and then taking it down again. And you're not going to be using it. It's not going to be like that sweater that you want it to be, that heirloom that you want to pass down to your kids and to their kids.
Because you use a lot of time knitting it, and time is money.
Exactly. And then of course we come to the coarser wool qualities. Norway is a knitting country. We have great quality wool in Norway. It's very coarse. Iceland has as well, the loopy yarns. These yarns can be a little bit itchy. But then again, on the other hand, if you knit a sweater using that kind of a yarn, those sweaters tend to last forever. They don't pill.
No. On me it pills.
Well, no, but I mean the really good quality coarse
the good
wool
one doesn't pill.
Will never pill. They are really, really good quality yarns. So you have to choose. You can't get a very good quality sweater that doesn't scratch and that doesn't pill. So either you're going to get a little bit of the scratchy or you're going to get a little bit of the pilling, but you're never going to get the perfect yarn because that doesn't exist. There's always going to be some pilling, and if there's not pilling, there's going to be the issue that the yarn is coarser.
And sometimes if you knit something in the traditional Norwegian yarn, you will get surprised when you steam it or after you washed it, because it's very coarse. When you get the ball and you touch it, it's coarse, but it's softened up as soon as you steam it or wash it. It changed a lot.
Yeah.
So it can be surprising sometimes.
Exactly. So always think of the finishing touches when you're buying a yarn, and thinking about, asking the people in the store, what will happen with this yarn when I finish my project and when I steam it, when I put some hot iron with steam in it, what's going to happen to it? And, there can be elements or things that will change that you need to know
That's
of.
a good thing with stores, because you can get help.
Yeah,
if you buy your yarn in the yarn store instead of ordering on the internet, it's good for advice.
Yeah. Now I think we should talk a little bit about cotton. I love cotton, and this is one of our favorite yarns to crochet with. It's the Catania from Schahenmeyer. And this is really, really
it's a great huge color range.
Huge color
That's
range,
the best part.
And a great yarn. I mean, great quality. It's very strong. This is completely unbreakable. No matter how much you twist it, you can't break this yarn. You need to cut it always. Cotton is very special because sometimes the fiber feels like it's alive. You'll knit yourself a cotton garment and you wear it 2 or 3 times, and you're going to see, if it's 100% cotton, that it starts to expand. And after you've worn it for a while, you'll see the cups are going to be expanding and it's going to be growing. So the only way that I know of to get it back in shape is to put it in the washing machine. If it's a machine washable yarn, you wash it and then it shrinks again. And then once you start wearing it, it expands again. Usually when we were working with the cotton yarns in Peru, when we were doing manufacturing, we talked a little bit about the yarn having a memory, and cotton does not have a memory. It kind of tends to forget how it's supposed to be. And a good way to change that is by selecting blends with other kinds of yarns. So for example, you have a cotton yarn, 100% cotton yarn, which has no memory and which will expand, but do say a 50% cotton, 50% wool, or 50% merino, for example, and you'll start getting a yarn that will combine the great qualities of 2 different yarns.
So this has memory.
This has
what
great
you
memory
said?
because
This
it's
has great
merino.
memory.
It's got great memory. You can also do a blend, say, of cotton with alpaca. You get a very soft, luxurious yarn with a little bit of memory. And then, of course, you can combine cotton with other things, bamboo, viscose. You can combine it with modal. Yeah, many different things that you can combine it with to give it a little bit of memory. And of course, I mentioned viscose and I mentioned bamboo. And please know that bamboo is viscose. Bamboo is a tree. Viscose is made out of cellulose from trees. They're both from the same family. They're both the same. So that's basically it. Viscose and cotton make a great combination for a little bit of memory. And I personally love Catania for crocheting. And I think that when you crochet, because you're crocheting and you're twisting the yarn, you're doing your single crochets, you're doing your double crochets, you're doing all your different stitches in crochet, you're actually strengthening the yarn even more by twisting it all the time. And I think that really helps when you're doing crochet because it keeps the fabric that you're crocheting more sturdy. As when knitting, because knitting is more elastic, you will get that thing where it expands. But still, cotton is a great yarn. So those are a few of our tips. I think the bottom line, the most important thing is an expensive yarn doesn't necessarily have to be the best yarn. An expensive cashmere yarn, 100% cashmere or alpaca is definitely not better than a less expensive merino yarn. And combinations of different blends have different qualities, and just think about the great things you love about two different yarns and look for those combinations in one yarn. And I think it's much better to spend less money on a really good quality yarn which has a little bit of touch of luxury than to buy something very expensive and luxurious that will probably wear out at one point or another, and actually rather sooner than later. So these are a few of our tips. These are a few of the things that we like. And these are some of the things that we've picked up, from experience in the industry. And I'm sure that you all have your own favorite kinds of yarns and your favorite kinds of blends. And we would love to hear about it. So if you have things that you feel we should know about, just put some of those comments in our comment field down below here.
Let us know.
Let us know.
We're
open to find out new things about this wonderful world of fibers and wools. So this is it for this week, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.